Thank you for joining us today for the Secretary's webcast. Everything that we will be referencing will be using the 2015 to 2017 chapter bylaws. You can double check that you are using the correct year or biennial by looking in the upper left-hand corner of your set of bylaws. It should say 2015 to 2017. Your chapter delegates will be voting on bylaws proposals for the 2017 to 2019 chapter bylaws, which will be available in early of 2018. So everything that we're talking about today will be referencing the 2015 to 2017 chapter bylaws. Before we talk specifically about the Secretary's position and resources and new items to help you in your role, one thing that I think is helpful to point out is the overall board of directors structure and some of those responsibilities so you can see how you are working with the other officers within the board of directors. So everyone that you see here on the screen, the president, vice president, treasurer, counselor, and secretary, all of those positions are required. If your chapter does opt to use a president-elect position, that person would then also serve on the board of directors, but that is an optional position. The bylaws also require everyone serving in this capacity to be an active, meaning dues-paying member of STTI and your chapter specifically. And each of these positions must be elected by ballot. So no appointment when it comes to any of these roles. And then these are your voting leaders, referred to in the bylaws as your officers. So if there's ever an officer vote that is needed, these are the positions who are the voting leaders. Just to tell you a little bit more about some of the general responsibilities expected of everybody, first would be to participate in business meetings, chapter activities, and communications. Submitting reports at each board meeting related to position-specific functions. So just giving everybody an update of since the last meeting, here is what has been achieved specific to this role. And preparing the office for transition at the end of each term. So making sure that the person who is the incoming secretary knows what is expected of them, who they can reach out to, and where their resources are located. As I mentioned, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about each of the roles before we delve specifically into the secretary's items. So we'll start with president. This person is the chief representative of the chapter, so the main point of contact. They help to administer the business of the chapter, which means the annual business meeting that is required, as well as any board of directors meetings that are necessary to help the chapter function. They do serve as an ex officio member of committees, with the exception of the Leadership Succession Committee, and they ensure the submission of required reports. So that might mean the annual report, the verification of fees, the IRS Form 990. Next is the president-elect. As I mentioned, this is an optional position, but many chapters do choose to utilize this position, and their sole function is to shadow the president for 1 to 2 years to become comfortable with the chapter and with the role of the president, so that once the president's term has ended, they can succeed into that role. Because their main objective is to shadow the president, there may be some specific responsibilities that your chapter would need to determine based on your needs. So that might be collection of report answers or serving on a specific committee or helping to recruit. Again, that just depends on the needs of your chapter and what you'd like this person to help with. The vice president will perform the president's duties in that person's absence. So that might mean they have to leave town for a month, or it might mean that they completely vacate the role. So even if you had a president-elect, your vice president would take over until the end of the president's term, at which point the president-elect would take over. They are also helping to facilitate the achievement of chapter goals by overseeing the planning of at least 2 chapter programs each year. And they often serve as a committee chair because they are responsible for the planning of those 2 events or programs. It is not a requirement, but many at-large chapters choose to have a vice president at each school in order to ensure that each university has programs and content that are specific to their area. The treasurer is the manager of the chapter funds, which means that they help to prepare the annual budget. They develop fiscal policies and procedures. They should be presenting financials to the board at each meeting. And then there are a number of reports that they are tasked with submitting, which includes the financial section of the annual report, the verification of fees form, and the IRS Form 990 for chapters that are located in the United States. The counselor's position is all about the induction of new members. So they are the lead for that process. So that includes securing the eligibility information and using the online induction system to actually upload those who are eligible and communicate directly with the candidates. They also serve on the governance committee, which is a required committee. And it is required for at-large chapters to elect a counselor for each school. And they do have to be a faculty member at the school where they are serving. So that's the only position that requires a certain type of person to serve, meaning that it must be a faculty member. Which leads us to the secretary position, which each of these items, when we're dealing with member and business correspondence and official records, updating the officer and committee chair report, we'll talk in more detail about to make sure that everyone is comfortable with each of those items. Now, I also mentioned that you do have some standing committees that are required. The governance committee, which is all about bylaws, and the leadership succession committee, who works specifically with the ballot and developing leaders so that there are people to serve on the ballot. Each chapter is also required to have delegates. Now, these aren't required all the time, but you do need to have 2 convention delegates during convention years, so we asked for those to be submitted back in April. And then if there's ever an electronic House of Delegates session, which we probably won't need one for several years, they are only there to vote on the Articles of Incorporation, then the chapter would be asked to appoint 2 electronic delegates. And then you're welcome to have any additional leaders on top of those that are required. The bylaws just say whatever positions are needed to basically get the work done, so you don't even have to indicate through the bylaws what those positions will be. And these can be by appointment or by election, depending on whatever your preference is. If you have something that's really popular, it might be easier to elect for that particular position. But these people can basically help achieve the goals of the chapter. So as secretary, if you needed help with member communications, you might look for a newsletter editor or a webmaster or a communication committee or something of that nature. It's not a requirement, but you're certainly welcome to have those positions in order to get your work done. Which leads us to your specific scope of responsibility as secretary. So we're going to talk about these kind of in 4 different areas. I'm also going to be telling you about some new items that have come up in the last couple of months to the last year to help you in your role. As secretary, I think that this is going to be the most valuable section of our presentation today. So again, if you have any questions as we go along, please use the control panel in the upper right-hand corner of your screen to send those questions through. So we're going to start with talking about preparing and distributing your member correspondence and what that means. First of all, the reason that we want to regularly correspond with our members, it keeps them connected, and members who are connected are much more likely to renew. A few years ago on one of our membership surveys, 60% of members indicated that their decision to renew is based on how frequently they interact with and hear from the chapter. So that's a large percentage of members who they don't really even care about the international correspondence. They want to hear directly from the chapter. The types of things that you are communicating are going to be events and activities that they can participate in, news and member successes, upcoming business, so the annual meeting that's required, the election that's required, and those sorts of things. And how you are communicating. We want to use as many of these methods as possible in order to reach the most people. Mass email messages, mailed postcards or communications, newsletters, social networking, your chapter website. So you do have several resources available to you to make sure that you're able to successfully communicate in a variety of different methods. When it comes to content, it's pretty straightforward that it needs to be concise. So not only keep it short and clean, but make sure that it's timely. So don't tell me about something that's happening tomorrow, because that's probably already too late, and relevant to me, which may require some segmentation of lists to make sure that if this is an event specifically for new members, let's communicate it to our new members instead of just blasting everyone the same information. If we can do some segmenting to get the information to who it needs to go to, members are going to be more likely to pay attention to it. One resource that you do have available to you, it's called Connections. It is a quarterly newsletter that is delivered within leader lines, and it actually has content-ready articles for you. So when we have time at the end, I'll show you where archived issues of this are available, but maybe you're trying to fill up a newsletter, or you want to make sure that you're communicating with members every single month, and this month you don't really have anything to tell them about, so you're going to tell them about something from STTI. So this includes information about member benefits, updates from the organization, and upcoming events that are international in scope. Another resource that is available to you is the Stt I Connect Newsletter. This is a monthly e-newsletter sent to all members from headquarters, but up at the very top of the newsletter, it contains a box for news from the chapter. And so each month, your chapter has an opportunity to get news within that newsletter to make sure that at least once a month, your members are able to see something from you. We do send a reminder every single month. In fact, one just went today to anyone listed as a secretary or newsletter editor or webmaster to make sure that people who are holding that communication role know when the deadline is to submit news for that given month and that they have that reminder in front of them. If you have never used this component within the management system, as soon as you sign in, it's located on the right-hand corner of the screen. You can see it's called the Stt I Connect Chapter Newsletter Editor. There will be content within the newsletter already because we don't want it to be a blank box when your members read it. So we try to make it something that's very general to their membership, something that they can participate in. So you can see here, this is all about volunteer opportunities and completing their volunteer profile to get connected in the future. So there will always be something in that box. You are welcome to erase it because you only have 1,500 characters. So that's just there so that there's always something there every month. Once you click on Edit Your News, you'll see there are actually 4 steps. Many chapters forget step 2, which is entering in the title of the article. Again, there will already be something there for you, so just be sure to erase it to make it relevant to what you're about to tell them in step 3. The correct month will also already be selected for you. So in June, we're obviously working toward the July issue, which delivers on July 1st. The deadline is the 25th of June, so there's still 5 more days to get your news in for July. So I've highlighted each of the steps that need to be completed. So the correct month is already selected for you. If you wanted to work ahead into August, you're welcome to pre-submit that news. Put in the title of your article and then put in your text within the white box. It is a 1,500 character limit. That does include bolding, bulleted, spaces, hyperlinks. All of those things are going to take up a lot of space. So I recommend keeping it just a couple short paragraphs. Some of the things that chapters will put here might include event announcements, save the date, event recaps for members who weren't able to attend. I see a lot of chapters who will say, we have a lot coming up, we have events, we have discussions, please come visit our website for more information. Because it isn't very much space to tell them about every single thing that you might have going on, a lot of chapters will use it as a way to push members to their website so that they can get connected. Once you are done, you hit the Save button at the very bottom, and it will tell you that your news was saved successfully. If it did not save, this will be a red box instead, and it will tell you generally that you have too many characters included. So to shorten it in order for it to be saved. So until you see your news was saved successfully, it did not actually save. And then as I mentioned, it is right at the very top of the Stt I Connect newsletter, and it does tell them the box to the left contains news from your chapter and to please read it and follow up if they have any questions. So again, ideally, this is something that you would take advantage of every single month to make sure that you are in front of your members as many times as possible. These messages come from honorsociety@stti.org, which you can see in pretty large print on the screen here. If you are located at a university, so if you work at the university personally and you know a lot of members are students or faculty there, you'll want to provide this email address to your IT department and ask them to whitelist it. Otherwise, there is a chance that it could get stuck in someone's spam filter, especially at university addresses. It doesn't even make it into the individual's spam folder because it's blocked at the university level. So that's why you would actually have to work with the IT department to make sure that they allow those messages to come through. Another valuable resource that you have available to you to help with member correspondence, anything that's free and easy to access for you. We're big advocates of helping you find those items. So you do have a chapter website available in the Circle, which is STTI's professional network. Just to tell you a brief overview of what your chapter website contains in case you've never had a chance to visit. It does have your chapter contact information and a list of leaders so that members and potential members know who they can contact if they have questions. There's an area for announcements. There is a member directory so members can connect with each other. There is a library where you can save any and all documents. So if you posted a new newsletter and you want to put the link to that newsletter in your Stt I Connect edition, you can give them a direct link to that library entry. It also has a discussion forum as well as live email sends. We'll talk more about that. You can input volunteer opportunities and have members sign up for it directly. That is new. And it does have a chapter event calendar. So as I mentioned, many chapters will make sure that their chapter website is up to date, and then they will, within Stt I Connect, list some of the new things that have been added to the website with that hyperlink for members to come visit. Just to tell you a little bit more about the live email versus the discussion on your chapter website. You do have both options. The email option is brand new. This allows you to immediately send a message to your active members. It allows members to unsubscribe, meaning that your chapter is compliant with spam laws. This is a very important consideration because your personal email accounts do not allow for members to unsubscribe, so you could actually violate spam laws if you continue to communicate with people who have said that they do not want to be communicated with. So having that unsubscribe option allows you to be compliant. Some of the downsides to using the email, well, the only downside really that I see, no special formatting can be done. So it's meant to just be, hey, here's a quick announcement that we needed to get out right away. It's just plain text. So maybe it's a reminder for an event that's happening today, or something that they can participate in immediately. And all of the replies are sent privately to the chapter leader who posted the message. So again, it's not meant to be something that's conversational. It's just here's a live email that we needed to send to me right away. Now your discussion forum, it does generate an email to your active members, but it's sent based on the member's subscription. So what we default members to automatically, just for being an active member of your chapter, is a daily digest, meaning that the message comes at the end of the day. Some members do change it to real time to get the message immediately. So that's just something to keep in mind. There may be a few people who get the message right away. Most people leave it to get it at the end of the day. This is also spam compliant because it allows members to unsubscribe. What's nice about it is that it does include a formatting toolbar, so you can make it look really nice. You can include images and any type of special formatting, bulleted list, bolding, pretty colors, all things like that. And the replies are posted publicly for all members to join in the conversation. So things that you'd use the discussion forum would be things that are truly discussion based. And if you're asking for an opinion or, let us know what you think, or if you have another event that you would like to help the chapter put together, please reply, or anything conversational that is more of a question where you want people to reply to each other instead of just replying to you personally should be done through the discussion forum. To get to your site, and I will pull up a site to show you some of these items that we've talked about, you will open up a new web browser and type in your chapter specific link, which is your chapter name followed by .nursingsociety.org. There's no www, we don't use the word chapter or at large. So we can see here ROCHI at large chapter is rochi.nursingsociety.org. It's meant to give you a clean link that's easy to remember. If you include that in all of your member communications, it will get members used to starting to go there directly. So don't send them to the STTI website to click on the directory and find your chapter and then click on your link. Just give them the direct link to go right to your website. The more clicks you can save somebody, the more likely they are to actually visit the site and take advantage. And as I mentioned, another new item that we have is that you can add volunteer positions to your website as well. So I'm actually going to open up a chapter website to show you what that looks like. You'll sign in using your email address that's on file with STTI and your STTI password, which if you don't remember, your member number will always work as a password to get you in. It's a good thing to remind members of as well. Most of the items you'll see right on the home page here, you can add an upcoming event, you can add chapter news. Your discussions is also right from the home page. So things of that nature, your library, your member directory, you can see all of those just by clicking through this green toolbar here. And then your settings button in the upper right-hand corner. As a chapter leader, you are an administrator over the site. This is where you can come and email your community members by clicking on that email button, and where you can manage your volunteer opportunities. So this chapter doesn't have any open right now. Let me open up one I know does have some. So this particular chapter is working on the recruitment for several of their committees. So we can see here membership involvement, a welcoming committee, philanthropy, research, programming, induction committee. They're working on recruiting members for all of those. So they've set all of them up as volunteer opportunities, and they will get those individuals approved as they submit their applications. We do have a video available that walks you through each of the steps to create a new opportunity and to be more successful within that opportunity, posted in the All Chapter Officers work group. So it is our hope that chapters will use this for any type of volunteer position, whether it be chapter leader, committee, coming to an event and working at a table, those types of things, so that we can recognize members who are volunteering their time appropriately. Continuing to talk more about the resources that we have available for your member communications, we also have chapter rosters available to you within the management system. So the way that I remember it, anytime you need to pull a report or submit something to STTI, that's done in the management system. If you're looking for a resource, that's the All Chapter Officers work group. So if you need to pull a member list or a roster, that's the management system. So let's say you needed to pull an active member report because you want to send a postcard to members who live in a specific zip code. So maybe you have thousands of active members, so you can't afford to mail something to every single person every time. But maybe if you segment the list a little bit to make it more clear to the group that you're trying to target, then you can pull a report and just keep cutting that list down so that you can get to the people who you're trying to reach. So we can export this as an Excel document. Anytime you use this feature, we do recommend that you export a new roster because we are constantly getting new contact information for members. So we want to make sure that you have the most recent information. So if you pulled a report earlier this year and it's saved on your desktop, go ahead and delete that and pull a new one if you have a communication coming up. So do not try and keep your own roster. Also within the management system is the print-on-demand system, which has professionally designed items imprinted with your chapter name and contact information. So this is nice when we remember that none of us are designers, and so spending time trying to design something that has already been designed for you and is relatively inexpensive depending on the items that you'd like to order. I would recommend that you browse through there to see the types of items that are available if there's anything you'd like to order for the chapter. So that includes letterhead and envelopes. There are some brochures, little gift items like cups and things of that nature. Some other resources that might be helpful to you, we do have some sample communication plans. So if you'd like to see what other chapters are doing in terms of who they're communicating with and the methods that they're using, this one is pretty thorough from Capita chapter that they shared a while back, but it does still apply. It talks about who they are targeting, how frequently, and who is responsible for each of those items. This can be found in the All Chapter Officers work group within the library. We will have time to tour the work group if you're not familiar with it. And you'll notice that there is a folder called Samples and Templates that has several areas that you might be interested in. There's one for newsletters, for notifications and letters, and other types of communication. So all of that we've already covered was just on the member correspondence side. One of the responsibilities is also to record and distribute meeting minutes. So if that's something that you've never done before, it's relatively easy, so we'll just talk quickly through these various points. So before your meeting even takes place, you'll be preparing for it by drafting the meeting agenda. So use the minutes and actions from the last meeting to draft your next agenda. Send it to the president for approval because the president is responsible for the overall conducting of business for the chapter, so they'll want to make sure that everything's included there. You'll need to send the meeting notice. If this is your annual business meeting, all members are invited to attend. If this is just a board meeting, then you'll just be sending the notice to your board members. So you'll want to start that as far in advance as possible. People will need time to take off work or to make travel arrangements, babysitter, those sorts of things to make sure that they're able to make it to your meeting. During the meeting itself, you will be taking the minutes, which means you'll need to document who is present, read the minutes and any resolutions from the last meeting, and then record any motions and meeting activities for the next set of minutes that you'll be preparing. If you've never prepared meeting minutes before, they're generally pretty simple. As I mentioned, you'll want to include who was present. Most people also include where the meeting took place and make sure that the date and time is included there as well. Within the body of the minutes, you'll have what was the subject that was being presented, any main motions and outcomes of those motions, and whether votes were adopted or lost. So you'll notice it's not going to say Sarah said yes, Lynn said no, Nancy said no. It's just going to say yes, it was adopted or lost. So there's nothing confidential included within the minutes. And then the time of adjournment. So these minutes will not be an official record until they're approved at the next meeting. So prior to your next meeting, again, when you're sending out the notice for this meeting coming up, here are the meeting minutes so that they can bring any concerns or changes to that next meeting, and they will either be approved as is or approved with those minor modifications that need to be made. But again, they're not an official record until they're approved at the next meeting. So this is why, if you've ever noticed from the STTI International Board of Directors, they do post those meeting minutes on the STTI website, and it's generally a few months behind because it hasn't been approved at their next meeting yet. So in addition to archiving your meeting minutes, some other things that you'll want to keep an official record of as a secretary would be your event programs or any other types of materials from chapter activities, so future leaders can see what it is that was done exactly by either reading the meeting minutes or through those programs. And then another component within being responsible for the chapter's correspondence and records is updating the officer and committee chair report in the chapter management system after an election to make sure that you do have an active directory of chapter leaders, and providing your committees and work groups with any historical information. So you can see there are many components within your role that might require you to get some help from other individuals. So maybe you need a webmaster to help with all of your website components. You need an archivist to help with the official record keeping components, and you need a newsletter editor to help with submitting news for Stt I Connect so that you could focus on some of the higher level communications that are taking place. I'm just going to pull up a quick poll before we get into showing you where exactly you're going to be making changes, where the management system is versus where the All Chapter Officers work group is. Let me pull this poll up real quick. You'll just answer right on your screen. Where can you find all of your chapter leader resources? So if you just want to click the bubble that you believe to be correct, is it the All Chapter Officers work group? Is it the STTI website? Is it both? Where is it that you'll be finding those resources that you need? I'll give you just a couple more seconds to get your votes in. All right, most of you have voted. I'll give you about 3, 2, 1. And only about 40% of people had the correct answer, which is the All Chapter Officers work group, which I'm actually going to sign into now. Every single thing related to your officer role can be found in the All Chapter Officers work group. There's no longer any resources or anything of that nature on the STTI website. So we wanted to make sure that there was only one location that you needed to go, and that is where you can find the most recent information. So let me flip over now to the circle. I'll also post that direct link into the chat log, which is thecircle.nursingsociety.org. As soon as you add someone into your officer and committee chair report, that assigns them to the All Chapter Officers work group based on those term dates. So all that they will have to do is click on groups and then my groups from the purple toolbar, and they are listed in alphabetical order. So the All Chapter Officers work group will be right near the top. The nice thing is that feel free, if you would like to bookmark, feel free to bookmark this link directly. Again, you'll have access to the group based on your term dates in the All Chapter Officer or in the Officer and Committee Chair report. Within the announcements, you will always see the link to meet one-on-one with staff. So any chapter related topic, you can submit a consultation request, whether it be how to strategic plan, your chapter website, the online induction system, anything of that nature. You can submit this form and you'll be matched up with the appropriate staff person. And there will also always be a link to the management system as well. So when you're submitting your Stt I Connect news and when you are changing that officer and committee chair report, that's happening in the management system. I'll go ahead and click on that so we can show you those areas. And I do see some good questions coming through. I'm holding on to them here. We're almost done with our tour to make sure that we can get your questions answered. So as I mentioned, the management system is where you are going to come to submit your Stt I Connect chapter news. So this is where we see this box that we covered earlier where you can click edit your news and get that information in there. Don't forget about step 2, which is entering in the title of your article, and then in step 3, putting in your text, hitting save, and it will tell you that it has saved successfully. The officer and committee chair report is immediately below that. So again, as secretary, you should be the person who is updating this. So you'll get that information from your Leadership Succession Committee, who is conducting the elections, to make sure that you are able to input the correct individuals into the correct spots. All you will need to do is click on the Add Individual button. You'll type in their last name, where they will pull up from a list of everyone in your chapter with that last name. They do not appear, that means they are either not active in the organization or they are not a member of your chapter. They will need to be a member of the chapter in order to serve. And then you set in their term dates. So again, all of that is managed by the chapter. STTI headquarters does not manage any of that process. So all of the dates and everything is completely determined by you. What you put in as the term dates will determine when they have access to their officer resources, including the All Chapter Officers Work Group, as well as Leader Lines, which delivers on a monthly basis. Then your roster report tool is on the left side of the screen. So again, if you needed to pull a list of active members, you can do so from this roster report tool. So if you needed to narrow it down to a specific group that you wanted to communicate with, or if you wanted to communicate with just your inactive members every so often, your chapter website, email, and your discussion forum is for active members only, and as well as Stt I Connect. Those are all considered member benefits, so only active members receive that information. So to communicate with your inactive members, you will need to pull that list and communicate with them separately. To go back to our work group and show you some of the other resources located there, my personal preference is to use these purple tabs near the top of the page. So if you want to click on the library, you'll see that there's almost 400 items here. They are filtered into folders, or you can use the search feature to find something specifically. So if you weren't looking for the bylaws, which are obviously labeled very clearly in this bylaws folder, there are a lot of by position resources. So as secretary, this is where you can come, where I will be posting the slides and video from today's presentation. We'll be removing the 2016 information and replacing it with today's. Or if it's by topic resources that you're looking for, you'll notice that here in the sustainability pyramid, there is a communications folder that includes the Connections newsletter that we've referenced. If you need to download the logo for your chapter communications, this is where you will find it, and the sample messages and communication plans. Again, or feel free to use this search bar near the top to search directly for something that you're looking for. All right, we do have about 10 minutes left for questions. I will start to filter through those now. I'm going to stop my recording so that our members watching this in the future don't have to worry about listening through all of those questions.